Hello, welcome to One on One with Jane. I'm your host, and today I have William Armstrong on my show. Welcome. So, I know you went to Ecuador, and you had some good experiences and some bad experiences, I'm sure. So let's go into your good experiences.
All right. So my trip was really divided into two or three parts. The first part was I got to Ecuador and went to Spanish school in the capital city, Quito, for I was there for about 6 weeks. Most of that time I was in Spanish school, and then I started to travel around first to Cuenca, where I actually have some distant cousins that we met up with. Also, I took some Spanish school there. Then I traveled into Peru for 10 days and came back to be on a reservation, to a forest reservation, and eventually did a 3-day trip into the Amazon. So probably my favorite parts were just the first week when everything's new and you going to visit a bunch of different locations, and the time I spent in Peru and in the Amazon.
Oh,
yeah.
Amazon.
Yeah, the rainforest.
Oh. Did you actually sleep in the rainforest?
In a cabin, yeah.
Oh. Did you actually hear the rain come down?
It rained a little bit when we were there, but I think it was just coming out of the rainy season.
Oh, wow. Yeah, good that you didn't think it was clean outside. So, what was your favorite area that you went to?
There were a lot of really interesting, cool places. I think probably the favorite city that I was in was Cajamarca in Peru, which is the city where the Incan king met the Spanish invaders, and where they fought, and where he was executed a year later. So there's just a place with a lot of history and a lot of cool tours to.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Was it actually written on a wall?
No, they have the square, and they have little plaques that talk about the history. And then they have a number of tours around to different locations nearby with ruins of Incan and pre-Incan civilization. But probably outside the cities was often my favorite locations, and probably Mindo is a small tourist town but that's also like a cloud forest reserve. And
Cloud forest?
So cloud forest, as opposed to the Amazon, is the low rainforest. Cloud forest is basically forest in the mountains, where you see clouds coming over the forest, coming over the mountains a lot. It has that name for a reason.
Oh, so it's probably more for sightseeing then.
Not really. The Mindo is second only to the rainforest itself in terms of biodiversity and bird watching. There's less of it protected, because that's where people have been living for a long time, farming, cutting things down, so there's less of that forest still left.
Who are those people? So did you experience anything bad?
Yeah.
Something else?
So a couple of things. One, that the food can be a little hard on systems from people from North America. You're just not used to all the different things, and there's a lot of rice and potatoes, and not often rice and potatoes with every meal, less vegetables and less things that we're familiar with. And
it seems like you didn't gain weight out of it.
No. If anything, I lost weight. You have to be a little bit careful of the food there. Sometimes If you're not careful, sometimes you can get sick. But the other than that, I was pretty much good for every day until the last day of the trip. When
wow.
which
What have you experienced?
So I had both my phones and a tablet stolen on the last day because my flight had actually been canceled.
Was it the same person that took it?
Probably, or the same group, but it was a very big crowd on Good Friday, so where people were butting against each other. I had stuff in zipped pockets, and it was taken without me even noticing.
I keep thinking that's bad. Even on Good Friday, if you think about it, someone got bad at something with you. That's really sad.
It's on the one hand that's true, and it is. And if you're taking cameras or phones or things like that, you need to be careful. And I did all the basic things right. It's just to protect myself for a week and a half, but for 3 months. It's just that after an hour and a half of sleep, not sleeping well for a few nights, a canceled flight, and being in a very unique, crowded situation, what I had been doing wasn't quite enough. So, but I do want to emphasize that this kind of thing can happen in any big city.
Yeah.
Like if you have to. Did you ever
find out who did it?
No, it's next to impossible unless I had realized it in the moment. But South America is not in general more dangerous than anywhere else for tourists. You see European single women going alone backpacking down the coast, and all throughout South America.
Well, did you enjoy your trip after all, even though that happened to you?
Yeah, no, I'm very glad I went. It wasn't the best note to go out on, but I was happy with a ton of the experiences. The only thing I'm really sad at is that I had less photos and videos from that last month when I was really traveling around, but I still have some.
Oh, okay. Okay, what do you have?
So, first off, this is just some of what you see in the mountains. Clouds going over the mountains. That's pretty common to see throughout the areas in South and Central America. That's the city of Quito at night. So it's a gigantic city, and
Is that the capital?
That's the capital. And most people in the Andes actually most people in South America, in these countries, in Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, live in the mountains or on the coast. So they don't really live in the areas that are we would think of as super tropical, even though they're on the equator.
Why is it cheaper that way, you think?
It's more that's where you can do agriculture better. That's where you have less risk of disease.
Oh.
So that's where you can have old cities that are more populated. That's me with my 2 bags that I was packed into for 3 months. Okay. That's just before I was heading out from Quito.
Oh, so you're just backpacking all around, right?
Yeah. I wasn't really doing the backpacking, but like there are people who just do backpacking and camp and go to hostels, but I was mostly with an Ecuadorian family when I was doing Spanish school or in hotels or hostels. So I didn't really go out into the wilderness and sleep overnight.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot for being one-on-one with Jane.
Thank you.
Welcome.